This is a webcast recording for modern European history. The purpose of this recording is to discuss the Chicago style formatting rules for the notes page. In a previous webcast, I discussed how to include the numeric subscript in your text. Remember, subscripts are identified when you use historical details in a sentence. These historical details are taken from your research, from the approved resources. Well, these subscripts, such as this subscript number 1, correspond to the list of resources on the notes page. Since the subscript numerals don't have any clarifying information, we need to tell the reader what resource was used for the historical details in this sentence. So subscript number 1 is identifying on the notes page that the resource was Frank Kidner's Making Europe textbook. That's your history textbook. And that the data, historical detail, and evidence used in that sentence came from page 553. The second subscript example here is identifying the evidence by using a direct quote. And that quote is being identified by the Angela Shaw article, Egypt's New Hero. In my example of citations, number 3 would be corresponding to the notes page list of the third source, IBID, which simply means as above. So if Angela Shaw's information is being repeated with the second numeric subscript in-text citation and the third, you don't have to type out or copy and paste Angela Shaw's citation information. You can just simply write IBID, period. If you happen to be repeating Frank Kidner Making Europe, then you would want to write IBID, period, comma, space, and then the page number where that historical information was taken from. Since Frank Kidner Making Europe is a book, you would want to identify the page. But any online resources that don't have page numbers, you would just follow IBID with a period. So going back to the in-text citation examples, if there happened to have been 13 numeric in-text citation numbers used in your paper, then there would be on the notes page 13 resources listed. The formatting of this page is including a title, which is simply the word notes. That's 1 inch from the top of the page, followed by a double space, and then the first resource listed. Notice that this resource has an indentation. Okay, this is different than the bibliography page where the resource is identified alphabetically by author's last name, and that's along the left-hand margin to start, and the second line is indented. The notes page is actually in reverse. So we start with an indentation. It's all numeric listings according to the in-text citations in your paper. Frank Kidner here is identified with first name first, last name last. That's opposite of the bibliography. And then all the rest of the information for the citation. Each citation is single-spaced, and then the citations are separated not only numerically but also with a double space. Remember, et al. Is the language that we use for and all the others. So Frank Kidner is one of 5 authors for the textbook Making Europe. So you don't have to list all of the authors. That would make the citation lengthier and more complicated. So the rules indicate that you can list the authors, the first author by name, and then et al. Is including all the others. Remember, books are italicized, articles are identified by quotations and not italicized. One of the things that can cause some trouble here is how Microsoft Word has some default settings. So if you start the notes page with number 1 and then you enter and then that entering kind of creates some defaulting mechanisms that alters your citations. Now this can be very, very complicated and frustrating and cause you lots of agonies, particularly if you can't figure out how to solve the problem. So I have a suggestion that it's possible that when you make your notes list of all the sources, that you list them first on the page without using the numbers. And that once you've listed them, then go back and you can put the number in, 1 period, 1 space. And then you can do that for all of the other listed resources. And that may keep you from having to fight against some defaulting mechanisms. Please note that this number 1 is not a subscript. This is a 12-point font number. It's not the exponent subscript size.